to set the mood. It's a nice festive occasion here. It is very colourfully dressed, lots of beautiful decorations and flowers to honour the departure of one of our great acharyas. Yes, please. Jayanilo Premadana Koruna Pracho Jayanilo Premadana Koruna Pracho Jayanilo Premadana Koruna Pracho Jayanilo Hena Prabhu Kota Kela Acharya Tako Hena Kahamora Swarupa Kahasanata Kahadasaradu Nata Patita Pava Kahadasaradu Nata Patita Pava Jayanilo Premadana Koruna Pracho Jayanilo Koruna Pracho Kahamora Vatajuga Kahakavira Eka kale kota gela koda natara Eka kale Asane kuti bo mata Anale pasibo Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Kele Pabo Sangira Sange Jeko Ilobila Se Sangana Paya Kande Narota Madha Sesa
Ganapaya Kande Narotamara Jaya Nilo Premadana Koruna Pracho Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Translation of this song. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the saviour of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Looking at the Bhagavatam verses and the series of verses here, I'll just read through to a section which gives me some inspiration to leap into the Guru Parampara. We can recite this one together. Stristvagre Mahad Adina Savikaranyanukramat Tebhyo Vinijam Udritya Tam Anu Pravisad Vibhu. Shustva, after creating, Agre, in the beginning, Mahad Adina, the total material energy, Savikarani, along with the sense organs, Anukramat, by a gradual process of differentiation. Tebhyaha, out of that, Virajam, the gigantic universal form. Udritya, manifesting, tam, unto that, anu, later, pravisat, entered, vibhuhu, the Supreme. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. After creating the total material energy, the Mahatattva, and thereby manifesting the gigantic universal form with senses and sense organs, the Supreme Lord entered within it. Purport. Fully satisfied by the answers of the sage Maitreya, Vidura wanted to understand the remaining portions of the creative function of the Lord, and he took the clue from the previous topics. Text 22. Yam ahu ajam purusham sahasrangri urupahukam yatra vishva ime loka savikasham ta asate. The Purusha incarnation lying on the causal ocean is called the original Purusha in the material creations, and in his Virat form, in whom all the planets and their inhabitants live, he has many thousands of legs and hands. What? First person is Karanadakshay Vishnu, the second person is Garbhadakshay Vishnu, and the third Purusha is Kshirodakshay Vishnu, in whom is contemplated the Virat Purush, the gigantic form in which all the planets with their different developments and inhabitants are floating. Text 23. Yasmin daso vida prana sendriya tendriyas trivrit tva herito yatovanas tad vibhuti vadasvana. O great Brahmana, you have told me that the Virat, the gigantic Virat form, and his senses, sense objects, and 10 kinds of life air exist with 3 kinds of life vigor. Now, if you will, kindly explain to me the different powers of the specific divisions. No purport. Yatra putraischa putrascha naptribi saha gotrajai praja vichitra kritaya asanyabi idam tatam. My Lord, I think that the prowess manifest in the forms of sons, grandsons, and family members has spread all over the universe in different varieties and species. 625. Prajapatinam sapatis chakupe kan prajapatin sargams chavanusagams cha manim manvantaru dipan. O learned Brahmana, please describe how the leader of all the demigods, namely Prajapati, Brahma, decided to establish the various manus, the heads of the ages. Please describe the manus also, and please describe the descendants of those manus. Port, the human race, or Manushya Sara, descends from the manus, sons and grandsons of the Prajapati, Brahma. The descendants of Manu reside in all the different planets and rule all the universe. Text 26, I'll finish there. Upari adascha ye loka bhume mitram sujat bhume mitrat majasate tesham samstam pramanam cha bhulokasya chavanaya. O son of Mitra, kindly describe how the planets are situated above the earth as well as underneath it, and also please mention their measurement as well as that of the earthly planets. Purport. Yasmin vigyate savam evam vigatam bhavati. This Vedic hymn declares emphatically that the devotee of the Lord knows everything material and spiritual in relationship with the Lord. Devotees are not simply emotional, as is ill-conceived by certain less intelligent men. Their direction is practical. They know everything that is and all the details of the Lord's domination over the different creations. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. This chapter, further inquiries by Vidura. Vidura has met Maitreya Muni who is a pure devotee and is taking the position of his spiritual master. So Vidura is enthusiastic to hear and find out from his spiritual master what his spiritual master can inform him, to the point of, as we hear in this purport, knowing everything material and spiritual in relationship with the Lord. It's said that if one has a bona fide spiritual master, one should know everything. So how is that possible? So the spiritual master is the representative of the Guru Parampara. Srila Prabhupada in Bombay, he was discussing a conference about the Bhagavad Gita, and the other proponents of Bhagavad Gita were speculating, talking all sorts of different things about the Bhagavad Gita, and he kept on bringing it back to the point, we won't discuss Bhagavad Gita until we can discuss in the line of Guru Parampara, to establish the bona fides of the acharyas, to put ourselves firmly at the feet of the parampara. And in that way, we can become effective, that the message of the Gita, all of this information can become realizable. There's a few instances describing the nature of the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple. And one of them is between Sanatana Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sanatana Goswami, he was informed on many subjects over, I think, 2 months about the nature of everything. And at the end of that discussion, Sanatana Goswami, he submitted himself to Lord Chaitanya and said, please help me to realize everything that you've told me. Please help me to understand, to manifest, to digest everything you've told me. So Lord Chaitanya said, don't worry, you'll understand. And then Sanatana Goswami bowed down and Lord Chaitanya put his feet on the head of Sanatana Goswami, indicating that he was giving blessings. And I also experienced it recently that the comment was made up at Rishikesh, the servant of my spiritual master. He was able to speak very, very nicely, describe many amazing subject matters, and he repeated the assurance that he'd received from our spiritual master, that by getting the blessings of the spiritual master, then you'll be able to digest and you'll be able to actually appreciate what is happening in all of this transcendental sound vibration, the information about the nature of the material universe, which is coming from Krishna, and how it's described through the different Purushas, the creation, how Lord Brahma, the original creator, how he manifested the different future managers, organizers of the universe, etc., etc. So today we have the opportunity to talk a little bit about Baladev Vidyabhushan, who is a representative, or who is in the line of this great chain of spiritual masters. The chain beginning of all this knowledge is from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself, who enlightened Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma, he's the head of our particular school, our particular branch of Parampara. There are 4 main Vaishnava, bona fide Vaishnava Paramparas. There are many, what do you call them? Schools of thought. There are many different branches. Some are bona fide, some are not. Some are directly connected, some are useless. So the main branches, for main bona fide Vaishnava branches, the heads of those groups, they're 4 personalities. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, and Lakshmi. These personalities, they were initially informed of the truth by Krishna, and then they, from them, descended families of spiritual teachers. There's another sampradaya, which is from a great devotee, Lord Shiva. The Vaishnava sampradaya is known as the Rudra sampradaya. Lord Shiva, he appeared on the order of Krishna as a teacher to present a certain level of knowledge, a particular style of knowledge, and he appeared as Shankaracharya. So his line is the line of the monists, the impersonalists. And he himself, obviously being an aspect of Lord Shiva, greatly honoured Vaishnava, but he had a particular mission. And the different acharyas, they appear at different times in order to establish different truths. Lord Buddha, he came at a time when the original knowledge given by Krishna had become distorted. Animal sacrifices are allowed within the Vedas. But at the time of Lord Buddha, then those sacrifices were, and the consumption of meat had become out of control. So Lord Buddha appeared in order to rectify that situation. And his first order of business was to tell people to stop following the Vedas, to just abandon all of those truths. Krishna, he said at the beginning also in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadhamam prijagya mamekam sharanam vraja ham tvam sarva papavyo moksheshvami ma suja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. Not that the religions are not going to give you some benefit, but if you want the ultimate knowledge, then you should surrender to Krishna. So people were not capable of doing that, and then they became distracted. Lord Buddha had to then bring everything back into line to help people to develop that quality of non-violence, ahimsa. So he said, don't follow the Vedas and just have faith in me. So the Vedas needed to be, the faith in the Vedas needed to be revived. So Shankaracharya, he came, he preached a type of covered Buddhism, and he then presented the Vedas, but in a jugglery sense, that everything became one. Lord Buddha, he was presenting a philosophy where everything is void. There's 9 basic truths, and if you search through all those different truths, you don't find the nature of the spirit soul, you don't find the nature of the living entity. It's all illusion. So it's all void. So Lord Shankaracharya, he came and he established that no, there is a reality, it's illusion, it's all one. We are all, everything is spiritual. So that didn't fly for long. It helped to remove the Buddhists. The Buddhists were getting patronage and by Emperor Ashoka, and then eventually they were driven out of India. The philosophical paradigm at the time shifted. So Buddhism was not in so much favour in India. And then the idea of monism, the impersonal philosophy, Shankaracharya, that replaced it. Shankaracharya, he commented on many of the Vedic texts. He mentioned the Srimad Bhagavatam in some of his writings, but he never twisted the meaning. Some of his followers, they didn't follow his same scruples. At the end of his time, Shankaracharya, he mentioned to his followers, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudha Mate. Just worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, you mudhas. Don't follow my philosophy. don't practice what I'm teaching. In order to bring the understanding back around, because the philosophy is still very, very extant in India and throughout the world, that we're just spiritual, we're all one. And actually, it really irks the devotees when they have to come in contact with people who are expressing this philosophy. We were doing some catering. Korma organised a catering event, and the recipients, they were all from that school, more or less. During their celebrations, they were dancing around and singing a song, "God is love, and love is God, and God and I are one." So we fed them prasadam and were satisfied with that. We didn't feel that we could get very far with them. After Shankaracharya, then we have Madhvacharya and Ramanujacharya. So their philosophy is not that it's zero, not that it's one, but that it's two. Initially, to bring it back, one of the two acharyas, I think it was Madhvacharya, he was very insistent. There's no all oneness. He wouldn't take that. He presented a philosophy which was based on Vishesha, the specialness of the living entity. That we have the same quality as the Supreme, but in different quantity. He was heavy. He was very powerful Acharya. And Ramanujacharya, he moved at another degree. He shifted the philosophy more to be inclusive, that there is a difference and there is the similar in quality. Not as heavy as Madhvacharya. He wasn't so dogmatic in his presentation. Prabhupada, he glorifies Baladev Vijayabhushan in a lecture in 1968. He said, in Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan's commentary, we will find the influence of both Ramanujacharya in particular verses and Madhvacharya in the general philosophy. In the refutation of impersonal interpretations of the Gita, he takes some of the arguments from Sri Ramanujacharya's commentary on the Gita. He takes the concept of Vishesha, the power by which particulars inhere in an object, from Madhvacharya, in order to explain the non-difference of God from his qualities. So after the shift has come back towards a proper appreciation of the living entity and his relationship with the Supreme, then other acharyas came, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to synthesize all of the different schools of thought. He presented the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, indicating that the living entity is simultaneously one with the Supreme, but at the same time inconceivably different. Just like the sunshine is the sun, but it's not the sun disk, and it's not the sun God. It's one with the sun, but at the same time inconceivably different. We say, oh, the sunshine is here. Don't mean that the sun has suddenly entered into the building. It's the sunshine, it's the energy. So there is a oneness, but there is simultaneously a difference. And that was elaborately explained and discussed by Lord Chaitanya in his presentation to his followers. And from there we go to the six Goswamis. From the six Goswamis we hear from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur, then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he was from 1638 until 1708 was the time that he was present. He became the leader of the Vaishnavas at that time. His most learned, his best disciple was Baladev Vijayabhushan. Baladev, and in the Guru Parampara, which we find at the listed in the start of the Bhagavad Gita, then he just appears as Baladev. There's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, then the Baladev, and the same line is Jagannath Das Babaji. The Baladev Vijayabhushan, there's a relationship. He's a disciple of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and between the two of them, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Baladev Vijayabhushan, their stance, their presentation, their philosophy, obviously Baladev Vijayabhushan, he would learn and take a lot from his spiritual master. His commentaries, they start with asking a question, further in questions. Please explain, how is this possible? How can the jiva be an illusion? How can the Supreme Personality of Godhead be unconditional, but also he's involved with the modes of material nature? You'd ask questions, and then he would present a commentary on that. So both of them, Baladev Vijayabhushan and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, their stance on who is a devotee is quite different. One presents the idea that unless you are a pure devotee on the level of bhava and prem, then you're not actually a devotee. The only real devotee is Srimati Radharani. She's the one who is engaged in serving Krishna. And so we're aspiring. Whereas the other, and I can't tell you whether it's Baladev or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they describe that as soon as you step on the path, you're considered to be a devotee. Just like if we are heading to India and we've left, but we're only just at the airport, somebody may ask, where is such and such? Well, they've gone to India, but they've just started, they've just stepped on the path. So two different stances on who is a devotee, what is a devotee. One is the pure devotee on that level of pure love, and the other one just the beginner who's following in the footsteps of a pure devotee. So at a certain point of time, I was describing in the Guru Parampara, there are different events in the universe that the acharyas have to rectify. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur being the head, there was a problem. The Sri, the Ramanuja Sampradaya, they were challenging the validity of the Gaudiya school, the Gaudiya Sampradaya. So they were challenging that the Gaudiyas, they're not bona fide, they're worshipping Govinda, and they've got Radharani there, but Radharani shouldn't be there. So the king at the time, in order to pacify them, he ordered them to take Radharani off the altar. They couldn't worship in that mood. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he was called upon, please, you have to fix up the understanding of the other sampradaya. There was not just a misunderstanding, they also wanted to take over the worship because there's probably some vested interest there that Govindaji is a very attractive deity, and then there's you have possession or you're in control of that temple, then you can get more followers, get more funds. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he received a letter from the king, there's a problem here, please come and fix up the situation. He was quite old. This was in 1706. It was 2 years before he was going to depart. So he empowered, he told Baladev Vijayabhushan, you go and present, you go and rectify their understanding. So Baladev appeared at Golta, near Jaipur, where these Ramanuja followers were, and they challenged him that where everything, all the philosophy is based on the Vedanta Sutra, but you, Gaudiyas, you don't present a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Baladev presented different arguments. Well, we follow the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which is presented by the author himself, by Vyasadeva. That's the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, we note that Radharani, her name doesn't appear in the Srimad Bhagavatam even once. It's always in a covered form. Aradhanam, there is a gopi who is the topmost worshipper, but Radha, her name doesn't appear. So how is it you can establish this way of worship with Radharani there? You're not bona fide. So Baladev he was challenged like that, and they said, well, where's your Gaudiya commentary on the Vedanta Sutra? Because they weren't going to accept any other level of evidence. Other times there were meetings and there was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He had to talk and present, and they said, well, because they were frightened of him, you can't talk on the Bhagavatam, you can't talk on this, you can only speak straight from the Upanishads, which is Shruti, which is their standard of knowledge. So he said, that's okay. And he pulled up from the Upanishads all the relevant verses that would establish the truth that he was presenting. So Baladev Vijayabhushan said, okay, if that's what you want, we'll work on it. So he went away from the meeting and went before Govindaji, and he prayed to him, this is the situation I'm in, to protect your worship, so what should I do? This is the natural tendency of a submissive devotee. You go and you present your case to the Lord. You ask for help. You ask for, it's beyond me. I can't do it, so please assist me. Shinga, you wanted to make a comment? No? Okay. So you're interested there? Sorry, afterwards maybe. So, yeah, he's the minister of deity worship, so there are many speculative ideas about what should be there in deity worship. So he can come along and establish the Siddhanta, establish the mood of the Acharyas. So at that point, then Govindaji, he spoke, he gave a message to Baladev. Don't you worry, you sit down, you start to prepare your commentary. And he dictated, Govindaji dictated a commentary to Baladev Vijayabhushan. He just had to write down in a very short time. He had a complete commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Srila Prabhupada, in the start of his Bhagavad Gita, just after the cover page, he dedicates his Bhagavad Gita to Baladev Vijayabhushan, who presented the Govinda Vasya. He's Prabhupada indicating his and everybody's indebtedness to such a great personality. Baladev Vijayabhushan, he came back, he presented his Vedanta Sutra, the king was satisfied, the Ramanuja people, they had to drop their case, they had to back away, and everything was established again, the proper standards of worship. So I was also reading in a few other areas, Baladev Vijayabhushan, his commentaries, they helped ISKCON devotees in their presentations. Burijan Prabhu, he wrote a book called Surrender Unto Me, and he is grateful for the help of the commentaries of Baladev Vijayabhushan and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because he was stumped. He was having doubts about, well, why does Krishna say that in the Gita? Why is it like this? And by looking at the commentaries of these two acharyas, they would say, and the next verse refers to this, and the next. So there's a summary, and there's a connection. There's often that thing we hear a class, and then we have to maybe discuss it with somebody, and then they'll say, "Did you hear that point? Did you realise that? Did you see that?" Because we're on our own. The presentation of the scriptures, their bhakti is described to be like the back leg of a dog. It's crooked. It's not straightforward. It's hidden. So we're dependent upon these commentaries. So Burijan Prabhu, he related that, and his Surrender Unto Me elaborates further. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he has a technique where he can explain whole conversations which are not there in the original text of Bhagavad Gita, but they're there by realization. The Acharyas, they can re-establish the truths by realization. And another instance was Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu. He was translating the Sandarbhas, the voluminous works by Jiva Goswami, who was, we have the Srimad Bhagavatam, but then to further elaborate on them, then Jiva Goswami, considered to be the most intelligent scholar ever. He wrote the Sandarbhas. So in order to unravel and to present those, then Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu, he relied upon the commentary of the Sandarbhas by Baladev Vijayabhushan, Attika. So Baladev Vijayabhushan, he's written on many different areas, and he himself describes at the end of his commentary, just to give you a little bit of a taste of his mood. He wrote, "Attaining the fulfillment of my desires, I immersed myself in the milk ocean of the Gita, but I have not been able to lift the jewel of wonderful meanings out of the ocean, though I have understood them to some degree. In this way, my master, the joyful son of Nanda, with great delight shows his affection for me." So Krishna has allowed him to be involved with the Gita, but out of affection he still can't fully understand. He can't lift the jewel from the ocean. With care, Vidyabhushan has attended upon this commentary called Srimad Gita Bhushan. O devotees who are greedy for the sweetness of Prem, of Sri Govinda, and who are filled with mercy, please purify this work. He's calling on the devotees, please help to disseminate Bhagavad Gita, purify the understanding. Bhagavad Gita is regarded highly by scholars and devotees and everybody, but still there's a misunderstanding. The succession as it was appeared to be lost, so it has to be revived again. That mood, not the information is still there, but the mood, that has to be revived. So the Gita itself says that one who studies this divine conversation, they worship me with their intelligence. And there's nobody more dear to Krishna than one who explains this science to the devotees. So by taking shelter of the descriptions of the previous acharyas and situating oneself in Guru Parampara, firmly at the lotus feet of our spiritual master, who's representative of his spiritual master, then we can hope to have some access to the wonderful truths which are there, hidden in the pages of the Vedic literatures. Does anybody have any realizations or comments or questions? Manimanda Prabhu.
So we know that there are the four Vaishnava Sampradayas are all considered bona fide. So these Brahmanas who were trying to take over the worship of Govindaji, they were Sri Sampradaya. Yeah. So Baladev Vidyabhushan got help from inspiration from Govindaji himself. So what do we understand from that the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy is considered superior? Or is it that simply Govindaji wanted Radharani back by his side? Or, we have Madhavendra Puri who came earlier. We understand he was the first one who introduced Radha and Krishna worship together. So I'm just trying to understand,
There was another instance where, I'm not sure whether it's Madhavendra Puri, it was Ramanujacharya. He appeared and he noticed that the way they were worshipping the deity, they were offering the starch cloth, and he in his mind criticised, and that night the deities kicked him 800 kilometres away, and he said, I'm not going to go back there, I'm not going to interrupt or interfere with the mood that they're presenting. So there's different standards. Even we have a particular mood when we worship Radha Krishna, and that's in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan. So how to understand? The Lord is satisfied with many different types of worship, and he's invested in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the Vraja Prem, that moves through Lord Chaitanya and Madhavendra Puri, and then it's up to us to uphold it. It's having respect for the others. And at certain times, I think that the conflict helps to bring out that difference, that sweetness.
Yeah, I have read that when the Gaudiya devotees came to Vishwanath Chakravarti complaining that, Radharani has been separated and the Brahmanas are trying to take over, we have to do something. Holy Vishwanath Chakravarti, he just started laughing. And the devotees, why is he laughing? This is serious. He said, you don't understand. Radharani is simply in a huff. That's why she wanted to be in a separate room. She's angry with Krishna. So the devotees looked a bit embarrassed. Why didn't we know that? But they said, but still, this is serious. We need to do something. So therefore, he sent Baladev. So.
Yeah. We can all do something, and the acharyas, they have to understand. I think Krishna Kirtan and Nishriya.
Just a point of information, I'm not sure that you could strictly say that the Ramanandis are Sri Vaishnavas. They follow someone called, a saint called Ramananda, and I think there's some influence of Sri Vaishnav Siddhanta. They follow Vishishta Dvaitavad, but I don't know if you can strictly say that they're Sri Vaishnavas.
Yeah. What I read was the followers of Ramanuja, I don't think it was Ramananda.
Yeah.
But there were schools like
there's some, especially the branch in Galta. Apparently, they rejected that teaching of Ramanuja.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's hard to identify just by the appearance. One thing about the Guru Parampara, it's advantageous when you come in and you visit a temple. When you pay your obeisances and you pronounce the pranams to your acharya, then people can identify, he's from here and he's from here.
Yeah. And then also just Mani Bhandara was mentioning about, how it is that there's some kind of disagreement between the Ramanandis and Baladev Vidyabhushana. But you see, like, these sort of disagreements seem to happen quite a bit, even with Srila Prabhupada and his godbrothers. So in one sense you can see this pastime is glorifying Baladev Vidyabhushana and his erudition, and how, as you mentioned, Govinda Dev directly empowered him to speak the Govinda Bhasha.
Yeah, an opportunity to preach.
And Prabhu, I'm just thinking, when we follow the sequences, from Lord Buddha onwards, it seems like it's a very difficult task. It says Buddhism is very prominent, teachings of Sankaracharya very prominent, especially in India, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is probably not as well known at this point in time. And it appears like it's a progressive philosophy that's evolved, and we now claim to have reached the pinnacle of it. So I guess I'm just expressing what I'm thinking. So it seems like it's a difficult thing for most people to understand, because you've got to know beyond Lord Buddha. You're going to know the depth of Vedic conclusions, and through a particular line to come to this conclusion. So for us, it's very nice to hear how it was all brought back through Sankaracharya after Lord Buddha rejected the Vedas. But it's a difficult thing to...
It's not an easy task. It's huge that the world has gone off track, and the philosophy that they're following is hedonism. And in Navadvip there was the school of learning, or the seat of learning, and that became full of impersonalists. So it's a challenge. It's work for the strict adherents of the Gaudiya philosophy. And it's through being empowered by Lord Chaitanya, chanting and dancing. He changed the hearts of people with his weapons of his beauty and his prashadam. So we have different tools that we can use to inspire people. We were at a fire yajna in Melbourne, and the followers of other groups were there. Sadhana. KK was.
Okay, good. I'll get to give you some. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So an elderly Indian gentleman, he was there, and he was watching the fire yajna, and he was hearing the mantras, and he was keeping up. and he approved. At the end, he said, "Wonderful jug, you're very consistent with Vedic standards." But there's one question. At the end, when you were dancing around and you were in ecstasy, how do you do that? Where does that come from? They're still keen. They want that. They want access to that flavor, that understanding, that love. So that's appealing. That attracts people. The philosophy can come in due course of time, and it is necessary because there are people who will challenge, and so we don't get bewildered. We say, "Oh, hang on, I haven't heard that before. I don't know where that's coming from. Wait a second, and I'll get somebody who can sort you out." But to just say, well, it's very clear. Often, different groups we say, "Okay, I'm glad you have faith like that. You please pray for me. I'll come back and I'll see you later." Different things like that. So there are certain people who are favourable, who are amenable, who can take advantage of it, and we go where the preaching is favourable, and we don't disturb the minds of the ignorant and the faithless. So there's an undercurrent. There's a presentation which is going on.
Yeah, it's just interesting you mention like Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda. Mahaprabhu particularly, he's the Yuga avatar, but he's, very few people really know him. It was a class I was listening to yesterday, Srimad Bhagavatam Maharaj, when he was a brahmachari. He was at just in the Bhagavatam Temple room, and there was an Indian man explaining to his family who the deities were, and he said, "This is Ramachandra and Sita." And then they went to Gaunitai and said, "This is Ramachandra's sons, Lava and Kush." So these things are going on. But I guess, we hear he's the covered avatar, so covered in the sense that he's not presented as the Supreme Personality, but also covered in the sense that very few people seem. I guess there's just it's only the very qualified somehow or other have access, even though he's Patita Pavana, he's merciful to everyone, but it seems not everybody has access. Or maybe it's due to our preaching, we're not presenting.
But that term that you just used, Patita Pavana, he's the property of the most fallen. So you have to acknowledge that you are fallen. And people who are described like this, they think they've got it together, they've got the information, I know what's going on. But we are especially conditioned, especially prepared to accept it. We don't know what the hell's going on. And please, thank you for lifting us up, and we'll take advantage of that.
I'll just quickly, just Kadamba Kamaraj spoke on this point that especially Lord Nityananda is even less known. And it's really, in a sense, this movement is Lord Nityananda's movement. It's a movement of mercy. And he made the point that, his opinion, that Srila Prabhupada named the movement the Krishna consciousness movement because Krishna was more well known and more acceptable than Nityananda or Chaitanya. That's the comment that he made.
Yeah, the Sankirtan movement, the glorification of the Lord through that method of singing and dancing. So we're very fortunate on this day of Baladev Vidyabhushan's disappearance. We should be mindful and grateful, thankful for the fact of when we've come along that we don't have to challenge. It's not so difficult, but still difficulties will be there, and there's challenges all the time. But with the help of the acharyas being situated in Guru Parampara, we can know everything. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Baladev Vidyabhushan ki jai, Guru Parampara ki jai.